asked a question, and it was seconded by Matthew Brady. How do you, and this is paraphrased because I don't recall the question off the top of my head, but I know exactly what the question is. But how do you teach your children? How do you teach them relationship with the Father? And how do you mitigate, in a roundabout way, added by Matthew, essentially the indoctrination that you see is highly prevalent within the public school system? First and foremost, that's incredibly difficult. Hence the entire idea of raise your children up in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. Rather, the word that's really used there is train. Train them up in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. Within training, there is action, okay? Action must be taken place. They must be living. Living requires action. You can tell me you know how to do something, and I might be able to tell you that, hey, that what you're saying you can do is impossible. But it's not impossible to you because you've done it, right? Same idea. You've lived it. You know ways around it. Therefore, now, because you've had the experience, it is not impossible, but rather completely possible and highly probable. Right? So, I say that to say that the children need to be trained. And I don't care how old they are. One of the greatest assets that you can have in your corner is quality people. Okay? You need men and women and good children around your children. And I don't care how old they are, but they look up to and respond to quality people. If you do not have quality people around you, then you're kind of left at the mercy of whatever they're influenced by. So with that said, step one, I would say, is get your kids out of the freaking public school system. If you can't do that, then you need to have your children inundated with quality people, with tribe. I would submit to you those quality people must be your tribe. They must be like-minded individuals that you do life with on a consistent basis, that you know and love, and your children have grown to know and love. You may not be related, but they call your brother Bob Uncle Bob because you're that close, right? You have a friend that sticks closer than a brother, and because of that, you're around them so much that they don't see any difference between that man and his wife and his children being no different than family. You need quality people. Okay, so after quality people, because that, like I said, that's going to be your greatest asset. Man, everything revolves around people and influence. It's really hard to say anything beyond that. Maybe your greatest influence beyond the people around you is your own example. And not necessarily just the example that you're setting forth, but rather your greatest asset or your greatest testimony is going to be your consistency. How consistent are you? See, I've been keeping Torah for 7 or 8 years now. 7 years, right? So I've been keeping Torah for years. My family, as a matter of fact, Lauren and I, we kind of didn't want to do the whole Christmas thing and everything like that. Even beforehand, before we even started keeping Torah. When we started keeping Torah, that's when we were serious about it. But we just really didn't feel the conviction or desire to keep, Christmas and Easter and everything. We kind of saw the pagan roots of the holidays beforehand, but my parents, and my family, they didn't like it. They didn't like that we didn't want to do the things that the family was doing and everything. And, to them, it was just family time. Good time to have and, be around the people that you love, and the reason of the seasons for Jesus. Even though it's not, I digress from that. But anyways, they'd give us crap about it, and I'd imagine that some form or fashion of what they would say and do was actually kind of testing us. Are we going to stay consistent in what we confess to believe? Because your greatest testimony is going to be the time that you have into your belief system, right? Whether it's, hey, I don't eat pork and this is why. I don't eat unclean and this is why. And then all of a sudden there you are 5 years later and you're still not eating unclean food, right? So what's your time frame? How consistent are you in what you say you believe? Are you keeping Shabbat every Saturday? Are you, making it a point to set that time aside, you and your family? Are you running your family? Are you the head of your household? As men, are you ruling and subduing as you ought to be doing? Right? All of these are going to be a testimony to your children, a part of training, because they need that solid example. Okay? Another aspect that you'll see, especially if you have younger children. If you have older children, you can invite them in to pray with you. Teach them how to pray. Nobody taught me how to pray. As a matter of fact, I can count on one hand how many times I've ever had to ask for help. Like I wish I had people around to teach me to do things. I had to actually figure a lot out. But maybe you need to bring your kids aside, If you can be consistent and disciplined in your time to where, okay, 6 o'clock in the morning, Daddy's drinking coffee and reading the Word. Okay? Or maybe my day is done at 3:30, so at 4 o'clock when I get home and all of my kids are home and everything, I'm going to read the Word to them. Whatever the case may be, Or that's something that we're going to do every single night. I'm going to pray for my kids. I'm going to kiss them on the forehead. And just before, I'm going to do all of that. Just after we read the Word, we're going to sit down together, and every single night they're going to hear Psalms or Proverbs or hear about the compassion of Yeshua as he healed the leprous man. And not only did he heal the leprous man, but whenever everybody was running away from that leprous man, Yeshua was walking up to him to give him a hug and tell him, in this moment you were healed because of your own faith. Little things like that. There's a lot of things that you can do to train your children to essentially put a hedge of protection around them. But it really is all going to be down to your consistency. However, on the flip side of that, especially of you who have kids in the public school system, that's a gamble right there. I don't know how you combat that unless you have good quality, solid people around you, and you are actually doing your due diligence to show them the Father's love, that you love them so incredibly much that you actually care about what they invest their time into. You know, you're talking to them every day, telling them you love them, telling them they're beautiful, telling them they're smart, you know, and teaching them things they ought to know. And you're hugging on them even after you discipline them. And every night you're praying over them and kissing on them and telling them that they mean the world to you. And just the same way that you love the Father, you love their mom. Or if you're a woman, just the same way that you love the Father, you love their dad. You know? There's a lot to it. Sorry about that. That was my wife. Anyways, you need time. You need time with your kids. You know, time and quality people around them, around those children is going to be your greatest asset. You know, when you're physically there, you're giving them your time, you're teaching them, speaking to them, speaking into their lives, answering their questions. Man, my son Jace, he comes up to me and he asks the most incredible questions. Daddy, how did Abba create our eyes? Daddy, who was the first angel that was created? Daddy, why does our body do this? Daddy, how does our body heal itself? You know, my son is thinking deep thoughts. This dude is 8 years old and he's asking me about the creator of the universe. Oh, man. But you got to put the time in early and often. But at the end of the day, your kids have free will. They have free will. And with this, as much as it will break your heart, and I would say to you, if you have older kids, as much as it'll break your heart for them to go astray and follow after the ways of the world, you have to relinquish them to the Father, because you never know if He may afford you the opportunity to have that prodigal son moment, because He's faithful and righteous and sovereign in all of His ways, and the human heart is continually evil and wicked in all its ways, and who can know it but Him? So at the end of the day, we're all just really doing the best that we possibly can to raise our kids in the fear and admonition of the Lord, so that they would know that one day the things that they say and do, there's being a record taken of, that what they say and do actually matters. What they decide to put their time into in terms of worship actually matters. But you, mom, dad, influencer of the young mind, be consistent. That's all I can say. That's your best shot. That's your best chance. And never, ever, ever withhold from your child the words, I love you. tears them up in here. Ask me how I know. With that said, I'll leave you with that. Bless you. Shalom. And Shabbat Shalom. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening.